Hello, this is Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians podcast. What episode is it, Ethan?
I have no idea. Is that correct? I think that says 108.
Yeah, no, somebody didn't change the episode number, dude.
You didn't tell me to do that. I didn't know we were supposed to. Well, so I guess it must be 109.
Ignorance.
Yeah.
Pleading ignorance.
So it's episode 109. Thanks,
109.
Ethan. Dude, you're not even blazed tonight, dude.
I've got no excuses. No excuses. My apologies.
Guys, so I have some fantastic news.
Oh, joy.
Do tell.
Hillary Clinton has officially joined the resistance.
Oh, sweet.
Well, that's pretty convenient. So she's going to resist Trump. Now, I'm pretty sure that was her sole job during the entire election, was to resist Trump, and she failed pretty miserably. So this will be interesting.
So apparently she started some sort of PAC to raise money.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's about money.
It's about the money. I think I heard that.
Well, dude, it's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
it's about the money. It's about the money.
Yeah. So.
Well, you figure, I mean, the Clinton Foundation donations dried up as soon as she lost her political influence, so she's got to have some other way to raise money.
Yeah, did that collapse? Like, is that still around, or did they just lose a lot of funding?
I think it still exists, but in some capacity. But they lost all their funding because obviously it was just a front for buying political influence. I mean, everybody knew that.
So do you think anybody heard that announcement and they're like, oh shit, I better go donate?
I mean,
so what?
I mean, like the military industrial complex and all those people, absolutely.
We've got to resist not going into more wars.
Yeah, if only.
If only, right?
So what? So like she made some formal announcement, like I'm starting a PAC to resist Trump, and what was there any more details she offered? Like any insight as to what she's going to do other than just take your money?
Well, it was this whole thing of Hillary Clinton has reemerged, and she did some interview with maybe it was like ABC News or something like that. Or it might have even been like BBC. I don't know. And she's like, yeah, I'm officially part of the resistance now. It's like, oh, great. And I mean, in their defense, there are some leftists who are like, fuck that shit. You know, they're...
Well, yeah, there
were definitely leftists who opposed both Hillary and Trump. You know,
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, that may play well to some people, but Bernie supporters who already think she's a lying, scummy piece of shit,
right?
They're not going to fucking buy it.
No.
My experience has been that Bernie supporters are generally a standard deviation smarter than Hillary supporters, which ain't saying much, but they're at least smart enough to not fall for the absolute dumbest shit out there,
right?
Which
and
is what this is.
They're at least relatively consistent on particular policy positions,
or at least they try to be. At least they argue in good faith. I think.
Would you say
even if they're wrong, they are trying to be honest and everything about it for the most part, and I do respect that. And I'll even say that for Bernie.
So would you say that they are woke AF?
Woke, sloke, and...
But wait, would you say that for Bernie and the fact that he owns 3 houses? Apparently, his wife is now being investigated for. Some sort of I'm not sure what the exact term is, but it had to do with some college that she was running in Vermont, some private college.
I was going to say she's a highly paid university administrator.
Yeah,
some sort of administrative
apparently
type
they
thing, right?
spent a whole shitload of money on something. And so she's basically being investigated for something that's kind of like embezzlement. Just something having to do with money and fraud or something like that.
Some sort of abuse of some sort of authority or privilege involving money and whatever.
Yeah.
Did you share on Facebook?
I will.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Bergman.
You're welcome.
Our marketing department is on top of their game.
I don't know all the details on that. I kind of read a brief article about it, and I thought it was kind of funny.
That's not terribly surprising. And of course, I mean, Bernie has the vacation houses and everything.
Yeah. But at least when he talks, he's consistent.
I do think there is at
He's
least
not
some.
consistent.
I do think there's some degree of sincerity, and I don't want to speculate on how much, but I don't think he's completely insincere in the same way that Hillary Clinton obviously doesn't believe a goddamn fucking thing that comes out of her mouth, and she's like the most evil, conniving, scheming piece of shit that politics has ever seen.
Yeah, but I mean, he's
Bernie is a more conventional. Like I can believe that he actually does believe what he says to at least some extent. And he's not quite as slimy and skeevy. And, you know, I mean, and Bernie has said lots of things here and there that are defensive of Republicans and some conservative values and this and that, whatever. You know, Bernie was not the one going out there and just slinging all sorts of terrible mud against Trump, you know, as just like pure ad hominem attacks and this and that. You know, he would attack his policies and stuff.
Yeah.
But he was pretty reasonable. Like, he'll actually be pretty reasonable and actually stick to the policies, stick to the ideas. And not just being like a lying scumbag, just slandering people and saying, "Oh, he's an evil racist," blah blah blah.
Yeah,
You know, which is clearly just sophistic, you know, bullshit and nonsense. So,
and he
you
also
know,
had one of his rallies or whatever shut down by BLM. So that's just something, right? Something positive, maybe.
well, yeah, well, I mean, I think that was because I know that he would be a totally cucked pussy and wouldn't stand up to them and have his fucking, you know, Secret Service guards fucking take him down like they should have.
Yeah.
You know, I suspect that is that they just saw him as a weak target. That's my guess as why that went down. But I mean, that was
Could
a
be,
while
yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
But and I will say I do not respect Bernie for that because he handled like a total fucking pussy. He just stood there like a fucking coward with like his like oh, I'm sorry, black people, don't hate me.
Yeah.
It was pretty fucking pathetic. But you know, in the relative sense, I think he's a lot more respectable than other politicians. Granted, he's a politician.
Right.
But ultimately, I think we were talking about Bernie supporters, and of course, the difference with Hillary. I think a lot of the Bernie supporters, you know, supported him in good faith because they really do believe the things, you know, they believe it's, you know, they weren't the ones saying, you know, these goddamn stupid white rednecks are fucking ruining the country with their racism, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, they actually had some wrong, but otherwise, you know, again, good faith, quasi-legitimate ideas about economics and this
Well,
and that.
I think a lot of it too, you know, like just viewing him, of course, I think the number one thing is that viewing him as to being more anti-establishment. And I think that had a lot to do with Trump winning as well.
Oh,
Because-
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, like I know people who were Bernie supporters, and then he dropped out, and then it was like, oh, the two choices left, who's the most anti-establishment?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of people like that.
Yeah, so...
What?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But the point of all this being that, you know, for Hillary to call herself the resistance, anybody who actually does consider themselves actual resistance is going to look at this and just fucking laugh. You know, nobody that actually cares is going to take her seriously.
I'm waiting for somebody to, though, because it's probably going to be pretty hilarious as soon as...
It kind of makes me think of that, like, that meme that's going around with, like, not John Belushi, Steve Buscemi, and he's like wearing like the backwards hat and like has a skateboard. He's like I'm we're the cool kids now or whatever.
He's like, hello, fellow.
Oh yeah,
X.
hello, fellow cool kids.
That's the
Yeah.
meme. It's like,
That's
hello,
basically
fellow resistance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and anybody that actually would consider themselves part of, you know, the vaguely left resistance to Trump, yeah, they're just gonna laugh at that. But I don't think that's who Hillary's trying to appeal to. Hillary's trying to appeal to the big fat cats, you know, that have the money, that buy and sell political influence.
Right.
You know, because obviously all she's done is like, I started a PAC. That means you can give me money. Okay. I mean, she said what she's going to do with the money. I'll be surprised if she has.
I think she said resist something vague like resist Trump's policies. Whatever that means. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a great investment then. Just give Hillary Clinton money. Okay.
You know, well, one thing that I really don't like about Bernie was his, like, he was constantly for more military spending.
Yeah, he was not. You know, I mean, he had a little bit of that
seems like
Jewish
he's
neocon thing going on. He likes Israel.
I mean, it seems like he was just in favor of more government spending in any direction.
Well, yeah, he's a fucking socialist. But no, he.
Well, dude, no, he's a democratic socialist.
Oh,
okay.
Never mind.
sort of like democratic gang rape isn't really gang rape because you voted on it.
Exactly,
and of
bro.
course, you know, the rape victim's in the minority. So,
What would you rather have, a Republican socialist or a Democrat socialist or a socialist Democrat?
Well, I mean, to that extent, I would want a socialist Democrat, because my biggest beef with Republicans of the last many generations is that they're fucking socialists and they're calling themselves Republicans.
But most of their socialism goes towards the war machine.
Well, yeah. Well, no, you're absolutely right. But let's not kid ourselves and pretend like Obama really slowed down all those bombs overseas.
Oh, of course not.
I mean,
it's just a bit of progression.
It's really sad. I mean, just like it is a fact that generally spending goes up more under Republicans. Mm-hmm. The spending goes up the fastest when Republicans control both houses and the presidency. It's true. It's true. I know. And we have the best economic and fiscal policies when we have a Republican Congress and a Democrat president.
Because it can't pass as much shit.
Well, yeah, exactly. So basically you have Republicans ostensibly trying to do good, quote unquote, economic things that are ultimately blocked by the Democratic president, but at least they're actually trying to do the right thing. And generally speaking, they can do very little. And so what little they do is the right thing. And otherwise they do very little. So again, you look at the Clinton years with Gingrich. Those are fucking great. But and of course, I would argue it wasn't because of Clinton; it was because of Gingrich. But absolutely, as soon as you throw a Republican in the White House, the Republicans in the Congress no longer stick to their fucking word, because they can get away with whatever they want. So, so the spending goes up when the Republicans control everything, and the bomb dropping goes up when the Democrats control everything. Well, it's because they're all on the same team. They all want to do the same shit. It just so happens that their side's rhetoric gives them better cover, to do the opposite
and when they're
thing.
And when they're not in the majority, they have to appeal more to their base. They have to appeal more to that rhetoric, so they come off as being, fiscally conservative or whatever. But yeah, when they have full control, it's like, oh, we don't have to really. We're in control. Like, we don't really have to pay lip service.
Exactly.
Just enough to maybe get reelected next term.
Yeah. Well, and people aren't looking as closely. Again, like you talk to leftists and you realize that like Obama bombed way more brown people than Bush ever did. Yeah. And like they'll look at you like you have two heads and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's a Democrat. Of course he didn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you fucking idiot. He did, because of people like you that assume that because he's a Democrat that he's not going to do it. Well, that just gives them the cover to do it. And so they do.
Exactly.
So, Democrats are not good for saving the lives of innocent brown people, and Republicans give them too much power, and they ain't good for the economy either.
Right.
So I guess we're all just completely fucked no matter what we do.
That's
what are we doing here?
dude.
All right, let's shut this thing down.
Shut it down.
Dude, I think you're sounding like more agreeable to me this week, dude.
Oh no,
you weren't riding Trump's nuts right there.
No, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
You're gonna get to like the Trump fucking.
Oh yeah, no, I'm gonna give him the.
I just saw something we didn't put on that list, but you know what? Let's just fucking roll into that right now. So, the Colbert thing. Did you hear about this?
Oh, the cock holster.
The cock holster thing.
Yeah.
So he said something on his show about, he made a joke about Trump being Putin's cock holster, which is a pretty funny phrase. Context aside, regardless of what you think about it. So then now there's been this, initially there was this outcry from a lot of conservative media saying like, oh, this is wrong. He needs to be, kicked off of the show, all this, which is, to me, is hilarious, because these are some of the same people who are calling everybody triggered and, need their safe spaces. And here you go bitching because some fucking comedian makes a joke about the president,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's room to criticize him for saying like that was really like over the line. I mean, there is such a thing as a line of like what's really acceptable to say on TV. I mean, you can't just be as vulgar as you fucking want.
What about South Park? I mean, if you want to say on a late night show that like a lot of people watch.
This is also network TV, not cable TV, so it's supposed to be a little more accessible. I'm just speaking as far as just our general cultural norms. I'm not saying like I have a problem with it for these reasons.
Yeah,
but I can certainly see how if the middle of the afternoon on daytime TV on The View or on what's it? I was going to say Kelly and Regis. Of course, Regis hasn't been on the show in forever, but just like some
Kelly
random
Strahan or something like that.
Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. But I'm saying like if this was like the middle of the afternoon, like again, I think we'd all recognize like if he said something like that like on the middle of daytime TV, like when kids are getting home from school or something. Like I think you could definitely legitimately say like you shouldn't be fucking saying that when like kids are going to be in the room.
But should he be like
That's
kicked off the TV show for it? I don't know.
Well,
about
I mean,
all that.
it's all a matter of degree. I mean, is this over the line? I don't know. I mean, I think it's fucking stupid, and yeah, it's pretty. I can totally see people getting offended. The whole he needs to be fired. I mean, yeah, I'll default to like, hey, it's the market.
Yeah,
If people hate it enough, then people are going to stop watching him, and he will be fired because his ratings are going to go down.
Right. Yeah, that's the way it ought to be handled.
Yeah, and so that's the way it ought to be handled, and that's my feeling about it too. I will say. That there's no question that for all of the last 8 years, anytime anybody said anything critical about Obama, it was like, how could you say that? Blah blah blah. And of course, it always goes back and forth, and it's always the other one side's. Whoever's not in power says the same shit every single fucking time. Mm-hmm. But for the last 8 years, you couldn't say a goddamn thing about Obama without was like, oh, you're racist and this and that, blah blah blah. And you wouldn't even have to say like terrible shit. Like you wouldn't have to call him an N-word or like anything. Like you could just be like, yeah, Obama's an idiot. You're just saying that because you hate black people. There's no reason to not like Obama. He's the greatest president ever. You're clearly just a bigoted, racist asshole because there's no other reason to not like Obama. And all this like nonsensical bullshit. Mm-hmm. And they would have that reaction to criticisms of Obama that weren't even a tiny fraction of saying, yeah, Obama's just a puppet. He's a cockholster for so-and-so. Mm. Like, imagine what their reaction would be, the left's reaction would be if you said that about Obama over those 8 years.
Right.
They would have completely lost their shit way worse than the right is losing their shit over this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll grant you that, but at the same time, that doesn't excuse anybody losing their shit,
Well, yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. It's like, yeah, they're all in the wrong, but my takeaway from it is, well, once again, look at the rank hypocrisy. And you're right, it does go both ways, but I do think that the left is being a little more hypocritical by saying, like, how could you possibly have a problem with him saying that blah, blah, Trump is just a cockholster on network TV and like this and that. And again, like, it's not like it's like the Colbert Report, which was like, a niche, explicitly political comedy show on a cable network. Yeah. That's different from, this is supposed to be like, I mean, this was Jay Leno's old show. This is the Tonight Show. Like, this is supposed to be something that's accessible to all Americans. It's supposed to be a relatively, I mean, it's not for kids, but it's kind of a family show in a sense. Like, you're supposed to be able to watch it with like your teenage kids, at least.
Right.
And again, not like teenagers are going to be damaged by hearing cockholster. Lord knows that's probably the least offensive thing a teenager
they're probably
says.
looking that up on Pornhub every day.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, can you imagine what the Pornhub like search results were, or like how like there has to be stats somewhere of like search terms on Pornhub. I bet you cockholster just like skyrocketed that night. People
apparently on like
cockholsters.
I heard something was like apparently on St. Paddy's Day every year there's a surge in like leprechaun porn searches, which is like, who's into that shit?
I mean, hey, St. Paddy's Day.
There's a king for everybody, dude. King for everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where sort of everybody's wrong, but I do think there's legitimate criticism. Now, of course, some people will say like, how can you say that about the president? You need to respect the office of the presidency. I don't care that you don't like Trump, but he's the president, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
I think that's a stupid argument.
Of course, yeah.
I think it's just the fact that you're just being so needlessly vulgar. And here's the other thing, it's slightly unrelated, that the left just does not seem to understand is that, sort of by definition, more or less half the country. Now, of course, I know the majority of people don't actually vote, but, half the country, in theory, supported Trump. That's why he won the election.
Sure.
So what they don't realize is when they're insulting Trump, and of course their insults aren't just like, oh, he's an idiot. Like, the insults of Trump are like the most vicious insults I've heard in all of politics.
Wow,
like,
dude,
ever.
You sound a little butthurt, dude.
Yeah, extremely. What people don't realize is that they're insulting all of Trump's supporters by saying that. So when like they say all this shit like Trump is the most racist, bigoted, blah blah this and that, like they're saying that about his supporters too. I mean, that's just like logically follows. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And of course, a lot of people will say, well, if you support Trump, Trump's a racist, and so you must be a racist too because you're supporting him, or at least you condone it. You're like, well, you obviously aren't anti-racist enough to not vote for Trump. I've heard all sorts of shit.
I don't know.
Like
I mean, I'm like Trump's a piece of shit. But what bothers me about that is, I feel like that there's like there's kind of like There's an implication that Hillary supporters are not as like repulsive.
Well, yeah, sure. There's that too. I mean,
and that's what bothers me.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, it's not like everybody has to make qualify every criticism with. But this also applies to a bunch of other people. I mean, like
it's in Trump in all of his worst ways, he's exactly the same as Hillary.
Well, yeah, I mean the worst things about Trump are no worse than pretty much the best things about Hillary.
The military-industrial complex is yet again winning.
But hold on, going back to the thing about okay, so Trump. Let's say Trump may have said some racist things, and you vote for Trump. Therefore, you condone racism. That doesn't necessarily follow, because at least as far as I look at it, voting, if we're talking about the libertarians especially, is a pragmatic action. It's like it's not something we want to be doing. Like if we could decide to live in a world without voting and a world with voting, I mean, assuming there wasn't like a dictator in the not voting world.
Are you saying that we would vote against voting?
Exactly. We wouldn't choose to have to vote, but since we do, by voting, you're taking a pragmatic action. So if you view, okay, Trump may have said something racist or sexist or whatever, however, his policies that are actually going to be enacted, if you believed this, would be more beneficial to our end goals or whatever, then it would certainly make sense to vote for Trump, and you wouldn't be a racist for doing it. You would just be sort of holding your nose and being pragmatic about the situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, sort of by definition, a libertarian doesn't, thinks that all presidents are evil and bad. Right. And so, the question, so by definition, we're always voting for the lesser of two evils if we vote, if we decide to vote.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, absolutely, we're always voting for lesser of two evils. And it's like, okay, we want somebody that maybe sort of, if you took it the wrong way, said some mean things about brown people, or do we want to vote for the person who has an explicit policy about bombing the shit out of millions of them?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. If I was a brown person in the Middle East, I'd rather be insulted than have a fucking Moab dropped on me. Yeah. I'm just saying.
Right.
So again, I mean, it's blatantly, clearly obvious who the lesser two evils are in that case. Mm-hmm. But regardless, I still think it is a distinct point that, when they insult Trump, and especially when they attack him in the ways that they do and how vulgar and insulting they are about it. I mean, there are lots of people that are very insulting about Obama, but lots of times, but it was
those people seem to be pushed to the fringe, though.
Well,
Obama?
Yes, that's true. People that were particularly vulgar about it would be pushed to the fringe, like you said.
Dude,
by
isn't that how the president should be treated, though? Every fucking time.
We don't live in that world.
I would say that's the only beauty of Trump, is that people are giving him a hard time, and that's the way the president should fucking be treated. Any president, whoever he is.
Yeah, except they only give a hard time to people who are on the right. If it was a fucking communist, if it was a socialist, they wouldn't be giving them a hard time. So, I mean, you want to defend these people who explicitly want to do the exact opposite of you.
Well, I don't think Bergman's defending those people. I think Bergman's just defending the idea that this is the way we should be treating every president.
Yes.
Like we should be. I mean, I don't know that I think we need to be completely nasty, talking about fucking them in the mouth or whatever.
Well, exactly, and that's my point.
I'm not 100% opposed to that either.
That's my point. There's a difference between criticism.
Donald Trump mouth fuck. Dude, should that be what this episode?
That should be our fucking new website. Dude.
Just wait for the parody porn.
Or Ethan mouth fucks Donald Trump. Would that be offensive?
I mean, as long as I get one of his daughters too.
Okay. If you got one of his daughters, what?
As long as I could mouth fuck one of his daughters too, then it'd be a reasonable trade-off. But my point is, there's a difference between criticism and insulting.
Yeah.
And what the left is doing with Trump is they're not criticizing his policies or anything. They're just insulting him. And by virtue, I can take criticism. You can criticize me all day long because criticism is ostensibly constructive.
Yeah.
If it's not constructive, it's just a fucking insult.
Right.
And then all they're doing is insulting people, insulting Trump.
And then on the other hand,
by extension, they're insulting huge swaths of the American population in extremely vulgar ways. That I think is where the majority of the outrage is coming from. And these are the people that you're trying
to.
I mean, dude, it's just you sound like somebody's invading your safe space here, dude.
See, I told you that we were gonna get to the Trump stroke.
Yeah, it's like with the fucking it's like you're complaining about the insults and shit, dude. And I mean,
well, regardless of what you think about Trump, and believe me, you criticize him all you want. That's fine. But the people that support Trump are the kind of people that we can get to as libertarians. People that oppose Trump are not the kind of people that we can get through to.
I disagree.
At least not the people that are
I
just.
disagree.
At least not. At
wait,
least
hold on.
not.
You're
Let me
saying
finish my
anybody-
thought.
Okay.
Let me finish the thought. At least not the people that are just mindlessly baselessly insulting him because they think it's the cool thing to do, and they told him that he was an evil racist, and so they believe it, and so now they're just going to go out and say the most vicious,
All right,
vulgar
if you're gonna
things
make
that
that,
they
hold on,
can.
if you're gonna make that distinction, then okay.
Yeah,
But if we're talking about anybody that opposes Trump can't be reached, that seems ridiculous to me.
No.
I mean, there's plenty of people that oppose Trump that I am like working on right now.
yeah, I think this is the
that-
best time to reach
you guys
them, dude.
oppose Trump, and we're largely on the same page on a lot of things. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in general, if we are to take the population and divide into people that are either pro-Trump or are, at least, their criticisms are reasonable and well-founded in this and that. This includes absolutely a lot of Bernie supporters are people that can be reached.
Okay.
People that are just mindlessly like, we should vote for Hillary because she's the only one that cares about poor people and will defend women, and Trump is the most evil racist bigot that the world has ever seen. He's literally Hitler, blah, blah, blah. Those are people that cannot be reached.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, dude, like
Because they're not thinking about it. They're just going on blind emotion, and are not using their brains whatsoever. They're using no facts, no logic, no arguments. They don't even look at fucking policies. They just base it on who I'm told is good and who I'm told is bad. Those people are not anybody that you can reach.
well, like I personally,
Bernie supporters, those are the kind of leftists that, again, I completely disagree with them. They're wrong on a lot of things, but you can reach them because, like I was saying earlier, Bernie supporters largely approach this in
disagree with
good faith.
them. You said completely disagree with them.
Well, no, you said you agree with them on certain things.
Yeah, you agree with them on certain things.
Okay, I didn't mean 100% absolutely. I'm speaking extemporaneously here.
You completely disagree with them on some things.
I mean, you're just picking apart my words for the sake of picking them apart.
No,
at this
no,
point.
I'm serious. I'm serious because I mean it's important to acknowledge, that there's because
I'm sitting here telling you that Bernie supporters are people we can reach, and you're like, but you said that you don't agree with them on anything. And it's like,
No,
I said that in passing extemporaneously. Okay. Like, I disagree with them on the vast majority of things.
Yeah. But of course, there's always going to be things.
But there are foundations like maybe we should consider facts.
Yeah.
Maybe we should use logical arguments instead of insults.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I disagree with them on
the
a lot
logical
of things.
conclusion that they arrive at.
Yeah, even though I think they arrive at the wrong conclusion, you can
Yeah.
at least have a conversation with them.
Anybody
and talk
that's
about
willing
facts.
to think.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not-
That's what it comes down to. As
Right.
long as they're willing to fucking think.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And not just say, well, but my friends told me you're racist, so I'm not even going to listen to a thing you have to say.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like, well,
yeah.
okay, go fuck yourself.
Right.
Get the fuck out of my helicopter. Speaking of which, I do have, and I was conscientious to
Oh my god.
I have
Oh
my.
my God,
I
dude.
don't know if the camera can pick this up. Me, General Pinochet's helicopter tours, established 1973. And there's a little communist being chucked out of a helicopter.
Oh my god, dude.
So-
Yeah, it's on the video.
Excellent. HD. I love it.
All right. I don't know what
dude,
to say.
like what's the deal? What do you think is like the justification for dropping somebody out of a helicopter?
Being a communist.
Like how so?
we already had one down this
We've been
road,
over
dude.
this so many
Let's
times.
not go down it again.
I will point out just a quick little anecdote, just quick side thing. Of course, we've all seen all sorts of videos that people are taking, like, on the ground at like these protests turned riots, etc.
Yeah.
And obviously, trying to engage with in whatever way with Antifa, whether it's making fun of them or actually trying to talk to them. Of course, that doesn't work. But so somebody, they're marching, these stupid little commies are marching around with their red flags and everything. And so somebody comes up to them and it's just like, it's clearly there's an antagonistic, vibe going on here. So whoever it was that's behind the camera, I assume is a Trump supporter, a right winger, maybe a libertarian, whoever it is, but it ain't a commie. So they say like, oh, so you're no, remember what it is. Now, of course, you're aware of like BAM is behind a lot of these Antifa riots. It's actually BAMN, by any means necessary. That's like Yvette Falarca's group. They were behind the Berkeley riots.
Hold on, real quick, dude. Someone wants to know where they can get that T-shirt.
Oh, that's a good question. Where can they get? Is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. Okay.
I bet there's probably more than one
Takes 2 months. What?
Oh, okay.
What kind of fucking Amazon shit is that?
I don't know.
It's not Prime. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, no, that ain't no 2-day shipping.
All right,
yeah,
so what
this was a gift to me, so I apologize. I'm not 100% sure, but if you search around online, you'll be able to find it. So anyway, so this guy, this is why I remember now that there was an antagonistic thing going on. The guy comes up and is like, "Oh, so you guys want communism?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And so he's like, "Okay, well, so how many millions of people are you guys willing to kill this time to implement communism?" And the guys, these Antifa guys, their response is, "By any means necessary."
Yeah.
So these people are acknowledging. So at least the Antifa. Let's leave everybody else outside of it. Let's leave Democrats and leftists out. Let's just talk specifically about Antifa.
Yeah.
They have explicitly, verbally expressed that they acknowledge that communism has always involved the slaughter of millions of people, fucking genocide. They're acknowledging that. They're not refuting it. And they're saying that, yes, if that's what it takes, we will do it.
But see, according to them, it's not genocide. It's killing the resistors of the revolution.
Well, yeah, and that's why these people are so fucking dangerous, and that's why they need to be thrown out of a fucking helicopter. You don't have to wait for somebody to pull the trigger. Just pointing the gun at you is enough to act in self-defense.
Fair enough.
If saying, yes, my ideology commits genocide of millions of people, and I have no problem with it, and I will do it again if that's what I have to.
Yeah.
They literally said that.
Yeah.
How much more of a threat do you need?
Sure, yeah, and look,
So, like I've said before, there is absolutely a line at which you are able to act in self-defense that is before the bullet actually enters your skull.
Sure, yeah. Now, if these people ever gained any real power, that they would be able to pull something like this off.
They've put a whole bunch of people in the hospital so far, including elderly, including women.
Yeah, if you're gonna be around them at a rally, then I fully support your right to defend yourself,
to physically remove.
Yeah, I support that. However, I wouldn't, I wouldn't support like going onto like their Facebook pages and tracking down all their members and like killing them in their sleep or anything like that.
Well, I mean, obviously we all understand, and again, like I feel like sometimes you guys sort of pick my words apart for the sake of it. I think we all know that this is a meme. That
I know
this
that,
is a joke to a large extent.
Yes,
not completely, but to a large extent.
Yeah.
Like this is just a joke.
I understand that. Yeah.
That said, the principle does apply. Yes, absolutely. If somebody says my political ideology is to fucking murder you and your entire family and everybody you've ever known and care about because you disagree with me,
right?
If you don't see that as a legitimate threat that justifies self-defense, I don't know what does.
Yeah, no, I don't necessarily have an argument with that, Colin.
Yeah, so I mean that's what I'm saying. I mean, when I joke about helicopters and chucking commies out of them, well, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders needs to be chucked out because he likes democratic socialism.
Yeah,
but if you're going to acknowledge that, communism slaughters people by the millions, and I'm totally cool with that, and that's the best thing we can do, and I want it to happen. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's over the line.
You'd much prefer the commies who deny it.
I'm sorry?
I said you'd much prefer the commies who deny it. The ones who are like, well, that's not real communism.
Well,
at least those people don't have like the idea of like, oh yeah, we definitely are gonna have to murder a bunch of people. Yeah, it's like, it just didn't work that time. Well, it's bad implementation.
I do have to concede. I have a tiny amount of sympathy for that because the other counter argument. They guess people say, oh well, capitalism has slaughtered millions of people. Look at all the wars.
But I have a counter argument to that
colonialism. Well,
which is that look, we may not have full capitalism or a completely free market. However,
we're more kind of just the tip.
We're just the tip, but even just the tip is way better than just the tip of communism. Because when you have just the tip of communism, you have 20 million dead. When you have just the tip of capitalism, you have people getting lifted out of poverty. Yes, some people are still getting fucked by corporatism and cronyism and all that shit, no doubt. Yeah. But we're in a lot better shape than Venezuela or.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The Middle East, where they don't have the respect for property rights that we do here.
Yeah, well, and the other, I think, valid defense is that in its truest form, capitalism is just an economic system, not a political one.
Exactly.
Whereas communism explicitly is both political and economic.
Sure.
And so there is very much so a difference there. But all I want to say is that at the end of the day, people say, oh, well, but look at the foreign policy of the U.S. government. And I think that's the one point. People want to say, oh, but you've left behind poor people in your capitalist society. Like, that's a bullshit argument. But if you want to say the foreign policy of, say, the U.S., has been incredibly destructive and killed all sorts of people needlessly throughout its history across the globe and everything. That is true. And so, we as anarcho-capitalists, of course, to us, true capitalism is anarcho-capitalism.
Yeah.
So we would say, oh, well, that wasn't true capitalism, would be our argument. And so I can't help but laugh and appreciate that, my argument, they say, oh, well, that wasn't true communism. I have to acknowledge, but when they criticize the U.S., my argument would be, well, but that's not true capitalism. So I have a tiny amount of sympathy.
I get what you're saying.
For their argument from that perspective.
Right.
And I think there are some people that are just so, I don't want to say dumb, I'll just say dumb, that they can't, I'm losing my train of thought, but I think that there are some people that really do think that you could have anarcho-communism, because of course communism is supposed to be stateless. Yeah. Again, I don't know how the fuck that's supposed to work and what mental gymnastics you have to go through for that to make sense. But I think there are some people that are not intelligent, or I don't know what their hang-up is, but where they actually really do think that you could have stateless communism that doesn't slaughter millions of people. Now, of course, we all know for a variety of reasons, it's not just an accident that that's what happens every time.
Yeah.
But I think there are people out there that do honestly believe in good faith that you could have stateless communism without slaughtering millions of people, right. Which is stupid, but at least they're not evil. Antifa is evil.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I'm past the point of using capitalism to describe anything that I believe in.
Well, you advocate for voluntarism or voluntarism, right?
Well, I
would say the same thing.
The problem is,
I think that's fair.
Well, the problem is the word capitalism has been tainted into crony capitalism, and that's just so ingrained in people.
You're right.
If anything, I'm more into the term market anarchism.
Yeah, but that's also shit that Center for a Stateless Society talks about, and they're thinly veiled anarcho-communists and that kind of thing.
I'm just saying, for me personally, I can't speak for them, but for me personally, that's where I've been at for years.
It's not a bad term. The words market and anarchism are reasonably good ways of describing it. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we kind of had this conversation last time, but it becomes one of those things where it's on the one hand, you have these terms that are getting muddled and are getting associated with things. But on the other hand, it's do we need to run from every term that someone is going to twist around? Yeah, how long till it's it seems to me voluntarism is pretty pure to the point where you can't
it's hard to corrupt that term.
Exactly. But who knows? With the right amount of propaganda, you can corrupt almost anything. So it's should we should we fortify and maybe battle back for the term capitalism?
But voluntarism is so beautiful.
That's what I know, dude. I know.
It's just nonviolent anarchy without saying the word anarchy.
Right. And you don't even have to bring in the idea of money, and you don't have to bring in the idea of capital or the idea of even the market when you talk about voluntarism. It implies the market, but it's really just a description of how do you interact on a very individual, personal level. Do you punch somebody or do you talk to somebody? That's
I agree. It really is, I think, the best description of the most foundational, fundamental aspects of the philosophy, which is basically all action should be voluntary.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, and I agree it does seem incorruptible. I will say, and this was the point that I was going to bring up, which is that the left, their tactics, one of their tactics they've been using for forever is their corruption of the language. Mm-hmm. They just take words and completely twist them around to mean the opposite things. They can confuse people and this and that, blah, blah, blah. So there's a part of me that says, don't cede ground, don't let them do it, fight back and take the word back. On the other hand, the other side of the argument would be is this really the hill you want to die on?
Right.
Isn't there, couldn't you be more productive? Just use another fucking word and move on to more important things. So I guess it's a balancing act, Again, I don't like the idea of ceding ground to the left and letting them take words from us. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, is that what really matters here? Do we really want to waste that much time and energy on defending something like that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It may be...
Especially when we do have other words that we can use that are
so
better or, as good or if not better,
Yeah. So, maybe voluntarism is great. I still use the word anarcho-capitalist because I think for those of us that are within the libertarian sphere, it is a more accurate descriptor of sort of the nuanced perspective that I come from. Mm-hmm. I do come from that Rothbardian, Hoppian anarcho-capitalist perspective.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas a lot of other people that I agree with on a wide, maybe not everything, but a wide variety of things, and certainly a lot of the fundamentals do not come from that perspective. But they're still libertarians or some variation of it.
Yeah.
So I do think it's useful for, at least within those of us that actually know what it really means, it is a useful term to say anarcho-capitalist, because that tells you, what perspective you're coming to this from. Outside of libertarian circles, where nobody fucking knows what the hell anarcho-capitalism is, or who Triple H or Rothbard are.
Well, I mean,
maybe it is useless, and you're just creating more problems by using the term.
But hold on, at the same time, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about like anarchism without hyphens, dude. But
here's
like
the problem with that.
anarcho-capitalism,
Here's the problem with that.
It kind of like implies like a preference, and really like, I just don't give a shit as long as there's not violence. You know what I'm saying?
And there's respect for property rights.
Well, sure. But I mean, at least the
way.
way
But here's the problem with anarchy without hyphens. So you just brought up the circle of so you have the libertarian circle, and then you have everyone outside of that. The problem with dropping the hyphens, if you're going to use the term anarchy, is that anarchy also has a lot of other associations outside of anarcho-capitalism.
Antifa are anarchists.
They're supposedly anarchists.
I mean, yeah, totally.
There's the anarchists.
Voluntarism's a better word.
Right. So that's why I tend not to use the term anarchy by itself in really any context, just because of those associations. I'd rather use the term libertarian, even though that also has its associations with minarchism and shit like that, which I don't necessarily have a huge problem with people associating
Cato
with
Institute.
Yeah, or whatever. But I do like to use voluntarism, because then if someone asks me, well, what does that mean? Then I have a chance to sort of explain, what voluntarism is and what the NAP is and all that if I want to.
Well, and I think
that's why I prefer that.
I think that's a good point, is that it's not a word people have heard before, so they don't have any preconceived notions. So you can start talking about and communicate the ideas before they have a chance to put up the shield.
The blinders, yeah. Or the shield, yeah.
So, I mean, these all sound like really good arguments for, hey, everybody just say fucking voluntarism and don't let them. Maybe that'll be the hill we die on. If they go after the word voluntarism, then we defend that.
Yeah.
Maybe that should be the policy going forward.
Sounds good to me, man. All right. Let's move on to so today, a few hours ago, we found out who won the French election, and it was I don't remember what his first name is, but his last name is
Emmanuel, I think.
Emmanuel Macron.
I
get the fucking C and the R mixed up.
Yeah.
So he won, defeating Marine Le Pen. A lot of people seem to be pretty happy about that. At least
some people seem to be really pissed,
and some people seem to be really pissed.
I mean, I for one absolutely was supporting Le Pen. Of course, you didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
I supported her because of her nationalism. I don't think that nationalism is an end of itself, but I think it's an important tool we need to use in the fight against globalism. I think globalism is the biggest threat.
In the fight against a one world government?
Yes. I think it is an important tool. I would much rather have a nationalistic U.S. than a communist global tyranny.
Yeah,
for example.
See, my whole thing is I'm more individualistic. So, and I feel like that's the greatest freedom.
Well, but see, this is the problem I have with your perspective. Why I don't subscribe to it is, I feel like you're stuck in a purity spiral of ineffectiveness, where you get stuck on.
Oh shit, dude!
Where you get stuck on, where you get, you let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know what I mean?
But I think you're sort of with this whole nationalistic thing. You're just always assuming that. You're assuming that the smaller the government, the better that government, or not the smaller, but the less area that government controls, the better that government would necessarily be. And I don't know that necessarily follows. Because, I mean, if she takes over and she institutes, I'm being hyperbolic here, but if
she is anti-EU. Let's not forget that.
Right, but what I'm saying is while out of context, in its own context or whatever, that's good. That's a good thing. Brexit, whatever, all that was good. However, if you look at it in terms of so now you have this sort of breakaway, let's take for example North Korea, right? I mean, North Korea doesn't belong to any organizations at all. And we certainly don't want North Korea. So it's not like North Korea is better off because they're not a part of the UN or the NATO or whatever. All I'm saying is by virtue of it not being a part of some sort of world order doesn't necessarily make it a good place or a better government. It's actually a much worse government. Not necessarily because they aren't a part of it. I'm just saying it doesn't.
Well, they're probably better if they were part of the UN instead of being puppets of the Communist Chinese government, which is who really runs and supports and backs up North Korea.
Right.
So I think that's an important detail to remember. It's not like North Korea is an island to its own. They are nothing but a Communist Chinese satellite is essentially what they are. Fundamentally. I mean, they could not and would not exist, never would have, and would not continue to without a whole lot of Chinese support, financially and everything and otherwise.
So then your argument would be that they're a part of an order, but it is a super corrupt order as compared to the UN or NATO or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, will they be better off as being part of the EU or UN? Where they're not being supported by communists, but actually being criticized by Westerners. I mean, I guess it would be better. I mean, maybe it wouldn't. Of course, they never would join the EU or UN. I mean,
right.
It's a thought experiment. I don't know.
But that's
how relevant it is. But I mean, are we talking about pragmatism, lesser of two evils? Absolutely. Do I want to live in Ancapistan? Of course. But that ain't going to happen. But
I'm not necessarily going down that road. I'm just saying, by virtue of leaving the EU, does not necessarily mean that it's going to improve France.
Well, it sure as hell can't make it worse.
Well, it could make it worse if she institutes the Fourth Reich or something. I'm not saying that she's going to. I'm not going down the hyperbolic strain. But I'm just saying if that were the case, where you had a true Nazi populist whatever took over and just sort of cut everything off and built up this.
If you want to make that argument, then the logical conclusion is that of course we have to have a government. It's like, well, bad things might happen, so we might be better off having an organization that might be able to prevent it. I don't think that's. I mean, I see what you're saying. I mean, yes, that could turn out to be the case.
But no, all I'm saying is that it doesn't. I'm not saying that that's what would happen if you don't have. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that by virtue of leaving the UN, automatically you're going to have this government rise up. Nor do I think that being a part of the UN would necessarily prevent that either. All I'm saying is that it does. One does not necessarily.
Saudi Arabia is on the UN Human Rights Council.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So one does not necessarily necessitate the other. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know whether.
Well, leaving the EU has definite, real, obvious, tangible, immediate benefits.
Sure.
And you're saying that not leaving the EU might hypothetically, possibly in some way, not be worse than. It's like, well, that's a hypothetical compared to the absolute known effects. That would be good. I mean, the relationship of the European countries to the EU is really no different than the relationship of the states to the federal government here in the U.S. I don't think any of us would say, well, if Georgia and Florida secede from the Union, there could be some bad things that would happen. It's like, no, of course we would be like, fuck yeah, secede. Everybody should secede from as much as they can.
Right.
As thoroughly as they
maybe
can.
I'll move there,
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you look at it just purely as just political secession, which is what it is, that is what it is. I mean, how could you not support that?
Yeah, dude, it's pretty hilarious though, because I've talked to people recently who have moved to Florida to just because they're retiring and they want to evade the income tax in Maryland. So, So they're like half-year residents in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and all sorts of people. I mean, people in Baltimore retired just over the line in Pennsylvania, too. I mean, if you go just over the border in Pennsylvania, all those people are people that lived and worked in Baltimore and retired just over the border.
Yeah, meanwhile, these people could be, kind of helping the Maryland economy and stuff, but because of, taxes, we've chased them out.
I mean, so what's the tax money is going to go to pay for public education for illegal immigrants? It's not fucking helping anybody.
It's going to pay for public education in general, which
is terrible. Which makes people stupider and more indoctrinated. So of course that's terrible.
Totally. I mean, I'd like to see nobody pay taxes. If you're going to have taxes, they've got to be voluntary, which is not a tax. But
yeah, exactly. So the other thing. and this comes back to something I think that's absolutely relevant in the U.S. as well, is that nationalism is a very good vaccine against communism. And historically, that has always been the case. Now, of course, World War II, a lot of the premise of it was basically, communist infiltrations of Germany in particular. There were nonstop political riots, and that's where Antifa started. That was the original Antifa, where people went around assaulting, beating people up, rioting, destroying property, etc., in the names of fomenting communist revolution. And that's how you ended up with these fascist governments like the Third Reich and fascist Italy that that came to power because people were sick of these fucking communist rabble-rousers and said, no, this is horse shit. We need to fucking put this down and put this down now.
So is this like a defense of fascism?
No, it's not. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of fascism. I'll take fascism over communism. They're both fucking terrible, and believe me, I will be very explicit that is very much so a lesser of two evils things. But this is why the left and the further left and more radical left they are, the more they oppose nationalism, because nationalism is the vaccine against communism.
Jared, question.
What?
Baby cat.
What?
I got to know where you at.
Where am I at?
Do you have a preference when it comes to like fascism or communism? like what's your preference?
Well, just ask yourself: would you if you
would I rather get like
if you were in the
nuts, or would I rather get like high fived in the nuts? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, the question: do you want to be kicked in the nuts, or do you want to be fucking castrated?
That would be like a low 5.
I mean, that's a pretty clear,
or like a low 2.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
That'd be a low 2.
I mean, I don't know.
Punched. I don't know.
But yeah,
well, I don't know. It all depends on what angle.
Nuts.
To be more serious, I don't know, because it all depends on what type of fascism we're talking about. What type of communism? Like, is it a communism that I can easily overthrow?
It's about the flavor of the fascism.
Like, it all depends on who's in charge of that communism.
I mean,
like,
communism has not historically been an easy thing to overthrow because it's
like how
inherently
dope is
yeah, but neither has
communism.
fascism. I mean, it took the whole of the U.S. government to basically.
The fascist governments were defeated a hell of a lot easier and more quickly than the communist governments were.
Because the communist governments had nuclear weapons.
How long did World War II last?
Because the communist governments had nuclear weapons, though. I mean, if Hitler had a nuclear weapon, we would have had a whole other situation. I don't know that there's any strength to capital or to communism. I mean, if anything, it's a fucking huge weakness that'll just cause it to collapse anyway. So you can almost just wait it out. In that sense, I would prefer communism.
Well, okay, so let's.
But whatever. This is kind of a stupid argument to be having.
Okay, but I'm just saying. But let's separate fascism from nationalism.
Okay.
The point is, I mean, the point is that I believe that nationalism is a vaccine, acts as a vaccine against communism, and I think that the communists believe that too. In fact, I know they do. Why do you think they hate nationalism and they completely lose their shit over anything vaguely nationalistic? Because they know that nationalism is in direct opposition of communism.
Dude, I believe nationalism is the egg from which wars are hatched.
But if it's a war against communists, that's a war worth fighting.
Are you related to Janet Montgomery?
I can neither confirm nor deny such allegations.
Okay. Just curious, dude.
I don't even want to know. I'm assuming you're looking at comments or something.
Yeah. Sorry.
But the point is that national, and this is something I talked about, before on last week's show about a cultural identity that America no longer has, which is it's not a coincidence that we are sliding towards socialism, i.e., communism light. And moving away from nationalism. They are, I mean, yes, I get the whole Nolan chart. It's not just a strictly linear, one-dimensional thing. I get that. But nationalism does oppose communism. And insofar as that, or at least especially because it supports a cultural identity that people can get behind and doesn't leave them in this nihilistic void of ideology that believes in nothing, that can then be swept along as useful idiots to support the communist revolution, which is exactly how every communist revolution was fomented, and that's exactly how they all went down.
But I kind of don't like that. I mean, it's like the whole.
I don't like it. I'm just saying
it's like
it
the whole
works.
like religion is the opiate of the masses, and then when you take away religion, all of a sudden you have communism floods in, which is an argument that like Jordan Peterson makes, and some other people, which I don't.
And
I don't
Jordan,
know
and
how-
Jordan Peterson has made some very good arguments, that are fact and science based, about evolutionary psychology.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
psychology
No,
of
I
them.
like a lot of the shit that he says. I'm just saying I definitely don't like his views on religion, really.
Well, you don't have to like it, but
some
again,
of them are very interesting and I think useful. But I don't like the whole thing. Like, okay, you need to have religion, or else we all just collapse into like hedonism and there's no order. Like, I don't necessarily believe that. I think we can come to
That's why we're libertarians or voluntarists,
right?
Because there is a third way that doesn't require it. But and I'm actually glad that you brought up religion, because that traditionally has been the antidote and the vaccine, or not antidote, but the vaccine against communism. Yeah. And again, communists, they fucking tore down all the churches. They banned religious practices. Why? Because they know that a religious faith works in opposition against communism. Yeah. Nationalism works against communism pretty much the exact same way that religion does, just in a secular fashion. So, if you want to say,
if you have to choose between the two of them.
So basically we have four options before us as to how this is going to go down. We can end up with communism. We can end up with a religious revival, whether it's an outright theocracy or just a Christian dominated society, let's say, where people tut you for not going to church or whatever. I mean, who knows?
Fuck that shit.
Well, okay, so it's saying like America 150 years ago, where it's not like they're going to lynch you for not going to church, but like it's sort of expected that moral virtuous people were Christian people.
Yeah.
So you either have a revival of communism, Christianity, nationalism, or libertarianism. Now, obviously, we all want libertarian, well, and not just libertarianism, but, voluntarism.
Yeah, exactly.
Voluntarism, and we all know that voluntarism is the actual, legitimate, sustainable way of, it is the final solution.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's the murderless final solution. Yeah. But we also know that that's not really on the table. It's not practical, and it sure as hell ain't going to happen before the communists get their way. So the way I see it, and this is my perspective, I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong on this. But our only options left to fight communism are nationalism and religion. Specifically Christian, like Western religion, Christianity.
So should we all just be flaggots now?
Not necessarily, but I'm just saying that that's the perspective of where I come from. Nationalism, like, I don't like it, but it's a hell of a lot better than our other alternatives, and it is a great way to make sure, like, that's a known not great thing versus other known really fucking terrible things. It's lesser of two evils, but it's a hell of a lot lesser evil, and it's proven itself pretty damn effective throughout all of history.
Yeah, but I'm just all for like more like the individual thing, dude.
Well, and let's not forget that the nationalistic American identity is that of individualistic capitalism.
Right. Well, that's what I was saying last time.
So, I mean, to be nationalistic about America, the whole premise and foundation of America was classical liberalism.
No, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, dude, it's like
which is the foundations of libertarianism. So, I mean, moving towards a more nationalistic identity does not move us. Directly is not in direct opposition toward from individualism or free markets or anything like that.
I feel like it does lead people to a lot more wars, though. I believe it leads a lot more people to that. Oh, they hate our freedom like mentality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, and it's stupid. I agree. It's not perfect, but okay. Do we want people that don't have a big problem with dropping bombs on brown people, or do we want our countrymen to wish genocide upon millions of people within their own country? I don't particularly like either, but to me, from my perspective, and I'm saying this is my perspective, it's pretty clear to me what the significantly lesser of other evils is. So for all the valid criticisms there are of nationalism, don't forget, I am a fucking voluntarist, just like you guys are. Yeah, well,
I mean,
but
what you're talking about is
compared to the other options that are very real and they're on our fucking doorstep.
Right.
We really do need to be giving some legitimate, honest consideration at least consideration.
What are doorsteps?
Well, see, I don't know
value.
that. I don't know that I want to say
value that some of these other things can at least bring to the table, and at least consider them and see what we can learn from them, instead of just saying, "Oh, well, the nationalists are just a bunch of fucking faggots. Fuck them." Well, maybe. Well, they've been a hell of a lot more successful at repelling communism than libertarians ever have been. So maybe there's a thing or two we could learn from them. But I think that's a perfectly valid thing to say. We as libertarians have been shockingly ineffective. We have all the fucking answers. We have all the evidence and the facts, and the history is clearly on our side. Why have we been so goddamn ineffective? Well, because that's not what runs the world. That's not what influences people. That's not how people make decisions. That's not how people vote. So if we want to move ourselves towards a more libertarian world, just sitting there saying, "Oh, you faggots are stupid. You need to read some Rothbard and learn a thing or two," is not going to get you anywhere, because we've been doing that for generations now, and it's accomplished nothing.
Should we not oppose Trump when he escalates the killing?
You should criticize him. Sure, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that you have to always criticize him just because he's Trump, and just because he's wrong on all these other things doesn't mean that a broken clock isn't right twice a day, and you can't concede that, yeah, okay, he was right there.
No, I just criticize him when he's wrong, and he says some funny things.
Sure, I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The vast majority of your criticism, I think, is valid. I just try to offer a counterpoint.
The vast majority, what wasn't valid, dude?
Here's the problem the problem with the whole idea of like a presidency in the first place, or like having a finite amount of people in charge of something like other people's lives, is that like we're not even talking about criticizing Trump's individual policies. Like, people are just like, it's either you're criticizing Trump or you're not criticizing. You're either for Trump or you're against Trump. You can't just be like, well, I like some things about Trump, and I hate some things about Trump. And that's what happens when we have these sorts of like, and you see it in everything. Like, you see it even in like the libertarian community, where it's like, you get these celebritarians that show up and they say some cool shit, and then they do some other shit that's not so cool, and it's like, oh, am I allowed to like this guy anymore? It's like, if we, like, for example, like Stefan Molyneux, like, I've been disagreeing with a lot of shit that he's been saying recently as it pertains to Trump. However, that doesn't mean I just suddenly discredit all the shit that he said about like peaceful parenting or voluntarism in the past, just because like now I disagree with some of the things that he's saying. Yeah. Because at least I am able to like sort of compartmentalize, or not even compartmentalize, but I'm just looking at the content. I'm not looking at like the guy, the personality. The personality obviously helps the idea get across. Like, if you can't fucking communicate and you're like an ugly piece of shit, like, no one's probably going to want to listen to you.
Yeah, but you're at least making a concerted effort to actually consider the ideas on their own merits.
Yes, exactly.
And again, I mean, the human brain ain't perfect, and I mean, you can never be purely objective. That's just not possible.
Of course, and I don't claim to be. But yeah, like
an intelligent person, you're making a good faith effort to be as objective about the actual arguments and ideas themselves. Which, if everybody were like that, if everybody were like you and me and Matt, we'd already have been in Antifa for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, we've already won all the arguments. There's not a single argument that hasn't been easily, objectively, demonstrably proven that, of course, we're fucking right on every single, empirically, historically, logically, everything. And people just don't care. Because that's not what people. That's where the different tactics, people operate on.
That's where the different tactics that we've talked about before come into play. Where
absolutely, and that's why I've said I'm all for everything people want to do.
I mean, like, I think we need a good anti-war movement.
I mean, I'm all for it. The left are the only ones that have successfully mobilized against it, and of course, they never actually meant it.
So yeah, I mean, it would be nice if Trump could like spark such a movement.
You mean spark him against him?
Yeah,
well, I mean,
like a good anti-war movement, because that's the most important thing.
But that's the thing, dude. As soon as he started doing all the war shit, then the left like jumped on his side. Like, all the news media were like, oh, he's finally looking like a real president now that he launched 49 Tomahawk missiles at a fucking airfield.
Yeah, no, they literally said that. Like, yeah. I'm pretty sure, like, verbatim, there was at least one person that said, oh, now he... And I think I even heard it, like, now he's finally acting like a president.
Right.
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like...
So you have to murder people in foreign countries to be a president? Like, what?
And
now,
I'm just
don't get me wrong. Dropping bombs on ISIS does not offend me nearly as much as so much of what we've done in the Middle East in the past.
Sure, yeah.
And it seems like he's not doing as much of it as the last several presidents have. But, I mean...
But my point is just that, it's... I just don't even know what to think anymore. Because you would think, like, okay, now the left can use any excuse they want to just go after Trump, Like, they can start an anti-war movement just to oppose Trump. The same thing they did with Bush. Like, were they really against the Iraq War, or were they just against Bush,
Yeah, no,
but it seems
we
like,
all know the answer to that.
Right, but it seems like, I don't know if they're just too preoccupied with, like, the whole racism, women's rights, Muslim thing, and they're just not, they don't have time for the anti-war shit, or that he hasn't really done enough to warrant it yet.
Well, again, okay, so they're prioritizing the travel of foreigners over the not dropping bombs on foreigners. So again, you see exactly where their priorities lie.
Right.
Actions speak louder than words every single fucking time.
It's just very confusing to me. But,
well,
I tend to think logically.
Well, yeah. Stop thinking, and it'll start making sense.
Yeah.
So,
all right, you want to move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Continuing. Fuck that shit.
Well, we got the Trump care thing up there. I did have just one thing I wanted to say. People are criticizing.
The Trump care thing. Yeah.
They say it's a big steaming pile of crap, and it sounds like it may be. People are complaining like, oh, he didn't remove the pre-existing conditions and this and that, whatever, blah blah blah, and all that is true.
Like, how is Trump care a win, Ethan?
Because what a lot of what the bill did was it allowed states to waive the requirements.
Yeah.
That is actually huge, and it's political.
So wait, can you explain that further?
Can you explain that further?
So as far as my understanding, I don't quite understand all the exact nuances. My understanding is that basically there's the other requirements. You have to allow your kids on until they're 26. People with pre-existing conditions can get coverage. Although I think they did at least change it such that like insurance companies are now allowed to like charge you a surcharge up to a certain limit. For not for having a pre-existing condition and trying to get coverage. So they still have to sell it to you, but at least they're allowed to charge you extra.
So wait, what you're saying is like all the liberals like screaming about how pre-existing conditions are no longer covered is bullshit?
Believe it or not, I am saying that leftists are lying pieces of shit that don't know what they're talking about. I know that's shocking to hear from me.
And apparently acne is now a pre-existing condition.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So there are a couple things that, I mean, it really is just, very minor things around the edges, but it's not completely insignificant, them being able to at least charge some extra for not having coverage. But the big thing to me is that, and I wish I could remember all the exact details, but a lot of these ACA requirements that obviously could just completely fuck the market up. It's like, that's not insurance. You can't sell insurance this way. It doesn't work. Like pre-existing conditions. That's the point of insurance, is that you buy it before you get a condition.
Right.
So, at least like now they can at least charge a premium. I can't remember all the different facets off the top of my head, but the big thing is that as far as I understand, the law now allows states to override that and waive those requirements if they want to implement their own rules. That's huge. I think it's politically smart because it allows the states to get rid of Obamacare without it being his problem, so he doesn't have to take the heat for it. So that's pretty clever just politically on his behalf. But B, I think it's a lot more realistic. California ain't never going to repeal, waive any of this stuff. But at least, 40 or 45 or more of the other states have a good chance of repealing this stuff. On a state level, or waiving or whatever, or changing requirements. So really, I mean, what it ultimately does is he didn't actually remove Obamacare, so he doesn't have to take the heat for it, but he's empowered the states to make their own rules and supersede and override.
Would you say this is a 4D chess move?
It does seem like a 4D chess move.
Oh wow!
That said, I mean, of course, we all want the repeal and not replace and all that. So, people say it's a big steaming pile of shit. I do think that there are some pretty significant redeeming qualities about it.
So, what's the deal? I heard Justin Amash voted for this.
Yeah. He actually put out a very long Facebook post sort of justifying his voting for it.
Okay,
Really.
hey, he would know a hell of a lot better than I would. And Justin Amash is as pure purer than Ron Paul, or at least he's in the same league.
He's more pure than Ron Paul.
I don't know.
Maybe not more. Okay, maybe not more pure, but I mean, he's the only other person I think you could put in the same league as Ron Paul. As far as
I would put him
ideological.
I would put him in the B league. Behind Ron Paul.
He's better than Rand Paul.
But dude, what about Thomas Massey? Didn't he not vote for it?
Yeah, Thomas Massey did not vote for it.
Ooh.
Well, okay, I guess you're right. Thomas Massey is better than Justin Amash. So.
Yeah.
I think I was confusing the two in my mind, so I have to apologize and take that back. I think when I was saying Justin Amash, I meant Thomas Massey, so I was mistaken there.
Yeah, Thomas Massey's a little bit more raw dog.
I guess. No, I have to apologize. I was confused there. I was thinking of Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
But Justin Amash is pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Him, Amash, and Rand Paul are like the only people in Congress that are worth anything. In my eyes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to read that. I mean, I don't know if you have it pulled up and if
dude,
it's something
it's fucking
we can read
long
on
as
here.
shit. So
okay,
look it up.
Then we won't bother about
but
it.
If
you're watching
he said
at home, it might be worth going and reading that.
He basically said it was. He basically said it was a piece of shit, but that it was it was a step forward. Like he basically was like, it's better than what we have, so therefore, I voted for it. Is that good enough? I don't know. I mean, well, we can debate it up and down, but
yeah. I mean,
at least he did try to, he didn't just vote and just disappear into the fucking woodwork. Like he wrote a pretty concise explanation of what was going on there.
And I think that's a very, very healthy approach. That's very much in line with what I always say all along. I'm all for every approach. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can be stuck in a purity spiral. And I think it is fine and good to have those people that just drill on the pure fundamentals. It's important that people don't lose sight of that. Absolutely. Uh-huh. But at the same time, you need to have people that are actually going to move the ball towards the goal, even if it's just an inch at a time.
See, I mean, I don't think I'm really a purist, dude.
If this moves the ball just 1 inch, I'll take that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and criticize criticize the fact that it didn't go far enough. Absolutely.
I mean, okay,
but I'll take it.
Okay, well, maybe Trump was just an inch. I don't know.
They do say he has tiny hands, so it could be just an inch.
Maybe it was just an inch.
Just the tip.
But I mean, if it's just an inch, I mean that's still fucking. We should criticize the fuck out of him. It's a shame. It's a shame we wouldn't criticize him. It's a shame we wouldn't criticize Hillary more. But I mean, that's the great thing about Trump is that we have somebody who we're going to criticize the fuck out of.
Well, of course we're going to criticize anybody. And don't forget, I have at least made one very explicit criticism with the Tomahawk missiles. Yeah. I said, I'm not going to defend it. So, I mean, believe me, I'm not saying that Trump is beyond reproach. I just think that if he's the only person that is actually moving the ball forward, bear in mind, the Republicans over the last 8 years didn't do shit. Mm. The Republicans that are in Congress now have all the fucking power and don't seem particularly interested in doing much.
Yeah.
The last all-Republican administration in Congress under Bush didn't do shit. They actually made things worse than any other government we've had. So if this guy's actually moving things ever so slightly in the correct direction, I think we should be pretty fucking happy about that because things have only been moving in the wrong direction for a long time. Mm. The best thing that I was hoping for was that it would stop getting worse. Yeah. And that's good enough for me for now. And if they're moving it, half an inch, 1 inch at a time in the right direction, that's fucking great in my opinion. If nothing else, it buys us time. To figure out what the final solution is.
Let's not use that term. Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I guess at this point, I'm not sure. I feel like I have to wait till the dust clears, the dust of history clears before I could say, oh, yeah, Trump definitely moved the ball closer to the net,
Yeah, well, yeah, it could absolutely turn out that this all blows up in our face and it's a complete fucking disaster. I mean, I do think, policy-wise, these are the right policies moving in the right direction. Mm. What's the net effect going to actually be?
Yeah, that's what I'm
politically in the macro sense.
Is this going to result?
We're going to have to wait and see. You're right.
Because it could result, even if he does accomplish some awesome things that we think are awesome, but, like a lot of the solutions that we propose, they're kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off. You know, it's going to hurt for a little bit, but in the end, you know, things are going to be better. Like, you know, if you ended the welfare state, initially there's going to be some pain and suffering. However, in the long run, a lot of pain and suffering. However, in the long run, you know, things are going to get better.
Yeah.
The problem is, you know, and I mean, this is obviously a good thing and a bad thing, but and it depends on who's in the power. But, you know, the term's only 4 years for the president. And for Congress, it's only 2 years.
No, or 6 in the Senate, but...
Or 6 in the Senate. But anyway, so, like, that's not enough time to have something in place that is going to be a long-term solution that's going to take time.
Yeah, because
and of course I'm not advocating
because
for
in a couple of years they're going to repeal it before you actually get to reap the rewards of it.
And of course, and I'm not necessarily advocating for extending terms or any of that shit, but I'm just saying, from a practically speaking, like, some of these solutions that we want implemented, and that Trump might implement. Why am I saying implement? It's a weird way of saying that. You know, they might take time, and if they don't have the time to sort of come to fruition, they're going to get repealed, and, you know, that initial, like, ripping the Band-Aid off, people are going to look at that and be like, look at all this harm that he caused. Like, we have to go the opposite direction, and now we got to go closer to the left and socialism and all that. That's would be my only concern. To say that's not obviously, like, we...
Yeah, well, so what's the alternative?
Right,
just let them keep winning so they don't get upset. It's like, well, obviously that's not good either.
What we need to do is just keep fighting for what we're talking about, and, you know, sort of tell people, like, you know, explain to people and let them know, like, look, yes, it's going to hurt initially, but we need to just ride out the storm until we get to the fucking promised land, baby.
Of course, the leftists will say, well, but that's what we need with Obamacare. Of course it had growing pains, but if you just hadn't repealed it, then it would have turned into socialist utopia.
Sure, but there's no...
Yeah, well, so maybe that's an argument for it should be done very marginally, piecemeal at a time, that they can maintain their power for long enough a period of time. They can affect a more significant change. You know, I think one could make a good argument for that. And, you know, maybe that's his approach. Maybe that's his 4D chess.
Oh shit, dude.
I don't know.
Maybe I just figured out Trump.
You're inside his head, man.
I'm inside that chessboard.
But yeah, so I mean, we'll see how the Trump care things works out. I don't know that this is going to be the last we see about health care. Yeah. You know, maybe they're going to come back with another bill next year that's going to move it another couple inches in the right direction.
Also, keep
they
in
do
mind
that for another 2 years after that, and we're back to at least, you know, where we started before Obamacare.
Keep in mind, like, this hasn't passed the Senate yet.
That's that's also true.
We're kind of, you know, counting our eggs before they've hatched here, or chickens before they've hatched.
And that's the other thing. You know, if they do, you know, that they take smaller bites, they're going to have a better chance of passing it through the Senate. Of course, the whole deal with the first bill was that they were going to do it with a budget bill, which is why they were on that time crunch.
Yeah,
was because when they do it in a budget bill, the rules are different, and they're allowed to. Vote for cloture? I might be botching this, but like there's processes and rules where basically with the budget bill they can vote to not let you filibuster. So of course, like the whole thing with the filibuster is that it's a way to enforce a 60 vote win instead of only needing 50, because you'll need 60 to get them to stop filibustering so you can vote.
Right.
You know, before you can even get to the vote. The thing with with voting on the budgets is that you either you can't filibuster, or they can at least vote with a simple majority to prevent the filibusters, and then, you know, the whole point is that you can actually get it to the floor for an actual 50-50 vote much more easily without any filibusters.
Sure.
So that opportunity is passed, and if you remember, Trump was talking about like if you guys don't pass this now, we're not going to be able to do anything until next year.
Right.
And that's exactly what he was talking about, was that we're not going to have another chance to do this until we do another budget next year to be able to get this through with 50 votes, which the Republicans only have like 52 in the Senate. So, you know, again, maybe they're trying to just do it very tiny pieces at a time because that's the only way they can get 60 in the Senate. You know, not all of the Senate Democrats are loony communist you know, psychopaths. You know, there are some Democrat senators, you know, like the guy from West Virginia, I forget his name. I think I'm thinking of the right guy. You know, I mean, he's a Democrat, but he's sort of like your union type Democrat that isn't like an outright fucking communist. He just thinks that, you know, we need a little bit of welfare and this and that. Sure. Which is not nearly as insidious or dangerous.
Sure, yeah.
So my point being that, you know, there are a lot of things that they could do that would be realistic to do and get 60 votes and get at least 8 Democrats on board.
Mm-hmm.
A full repeal, you ain't gonna get that through with 60 votes.
No.
This maybe they could.
Right.
So, and I guarantee you that was a very heavy consideration, in crafting this bill.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it's not ultimately a turd. I'm sure there's all sorts of shitty stuff in there. Don't get me wrong.
No doubt.
Do we know,
dude.
Do we know how long the bill is? Like how many pages?
I think it was the original Obamacare bill was what? It
was 2,000 or something.
Yeah, it's several thousand. I think this one was only, I think it was kind of small. It was 90, 100 pages or something like that. Because it was basically just addendums to the original healthcare bill.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Look that up. I'm not really sure. But
well, I think that's a pretty good barometer of how much of a turd a bill is.
Yeah,
The longer it is, the more shit is in there.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was the deal though? Wasn't there something where Trump met with Obama shortly before becoming president, and then.
Yeah, well, every outgoing and incoming president does that.
Yeah, and then after that, he didn't seem to be as gung-ho about, getting rid of Obamacare.
Some of the comments are saying 20 pages on the GOP bill.
That's pretty, if they're right about that, I mean, that's pretty fucking good insofar as them not sneaking a whole lot of bullshit into it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, that's encouraging.
Sure. Sorry, what were you saying, Bergman? Did I interrupt you, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know. I forget now.
Sorry, buddy.
Anyway,
better smoke some more weed.
So, I guess that's sort of we had the continuing resolution budget thing up there.
Yeah,
I feel like I don't know what I was going to say about that, and I think we probably may have already covered it with the Trump care thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, I know that there was you had mentioned that Trump had made some tweet about maybe we need a government shutdown in September. So of course the budget they just passed was not a real actual budget. It was just a continuing resolution thing that they've been doing for a decade now. They've never actually. I don't think they ever once passed an actual budget under Obama. His entire administration never actually passed an actual budget.
Wow.
So we've just been going on continuing resolutions for forever, and so I think they just passed another one. To avoid a government shutdown, because God forbid people can't go to fucking national parks.
Yeah, but didn't Trump say we might need a shutdown?
Well, yeah. So that's what you guys were saying earlier, is that he made some tweet about we might need a shutdown in September when we vote on this again or something.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if he's gonna have some balls, he's actually to stand up and say, okay, you want to use that bargaining chip? You want to play chicken? Fuck you. I'm not gonna blink. That's what Trump does. He's a negotiator. He's the one. In Art of the Deal, he says you cannot negotiate unless you are 100% committed and ready to walk away. Mm-hmm. You have to be willing to walk away. If you're not actually willing to walk away and really, truly believe at your core that you are willing to walk away and prepared to do it, you are in no position to negotiate.
Sure.
So, that's exactly what he's talking about. He's saying, he's saying I'm willing to walk away from the table and let this whole thing, just let the government shut down. You're not going to be able to wrestle me into passing something that I don't like because, oh no, the government might shut down. Yeah. He's already calling him out and saying, no, go fuck yourself. You can't use that chip against me. I'll just fucking walk away. Go fuck yourself.
I mean, was it really that bad when the government shut down last time?
That was fucking wonderful.
Obviously, we'd want to shut down permanently.
The worst thing about it was how little of it was shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's 90-95% of employees still go to work. Of course, all the spending still happens. Yeah. It doesn't save them any money.
It's not like they're hold on, Northrop Grumman, we can't send the check this week.
Yeah, exactly. literally, all they do is they shut down national monuments because they think that this is the most forward-facing things that people are going to notice the most, and so people are going to get upset when they can't go to the national monuments now. But at the end of the day, nobody fucking cares about that. They just like to think that they do.
Yeah. I guess I'll go to a bar and get drunk instead. Oh, well.
Yeah, exactly. Who fucking cares? If only they would shut down more. If only they would actually stop military spending and stop sending welfare checks and stop sending Social Security checks, then, that would be a shutdown I could really get behind.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and so Trump is very smart to say, no, fuck you. You can't use that as a chip against me because it is a stupid chip. I mean, it's pathetic that the Republicans would cave against, oh no, we can't shut down the government. Then we'll look bad. and we don't want to look bad, so we can pass our policies of removing the government institutions. Like, what? This is what you're advocating for. Like, if you think that shutting down like a couple national parks for a few days is going to make you look bad, then how the fuck do you think your actual policies are going to make you
when
look?
You shut down whole departments, allegedly.
It's like, so you're upset. You don't want to be the bad guy for shutting down a national park. But you also want me to believe that you're really going to end the Department of Education and the Department of Energy, and you're really going to reform Social Security when you don't even have the fucking balls to shut down a national park for 5 days.
Yeah.
Give me a fucking break. So, again, I think that's wonderful. That's very encouraging. Not only is he not afraid of it, but that he means business, that he's really going to actually negotiate for a budget that he wants.
Right.
Now, if he has to negotiate for a budget that he wants in opposition from the establishment, that sounds like a good budget to me. Why the fuck, if his budget was, I want to expand spending on everything, well, of course he wouldn't have to negotiate because everybody would already be on board. Mm-hmm. So he's anticipating passing a budget that the establishment ain't going to like, which pretty much by definition means we're going to like it, or at least it's moving in the right direction.
Sure.
Yeah. So I find that very encouraging. What else we got on here?
We can talk about... actually, let's skip that one. Let's go to the Rockville rape.
So this is something I think actually Sean Spicer was talking about this, like in a White House press briefing, in the press room or something. I could be wrong about that. So I just have a little bit of commentary I want to give about this. So the background is that there were rape charges filed against 2 illegal immigrants in Rockville. Rockville, Maryland, which is not far from us. It is sort of a sanctuary city. I don't know if they explicitly are, but certainly if you've ever been to Rockville, there's a whole lot of Hispanic people there. And they aren't all speaking English as a first language. So there's definitely a lot of illegal immigrants around there. And there's no question that the local law enforcement and politicians are looking the other way. That's all this aside.
Yeah, a lot of those people are cool out there too, though.
Oh, you're saying they are cool or aren't cool?
Are cool. I'm saying. Well, yeah, it's a pretty chill area, dude.
Okay, to each their own. Anyway, I don't want to pass judgment on that. So what I want to say.
I don't either.
So what I want to say about it is, so this was a case that is not unlike so many other cases that did turn out to very much so be false rape allegations. Or at least the charges were not legitimate. Now, this involves high school students. I think one of the alleged and now no longer alleged perpetrators of the rape was 18 years old, so I think maybe his name's been released. And then the girl and the other guy were like 17 or younger. So a lot of it's because they're minors, they're not releasing a whole lot of information about it. But basically my understanding is that she was having sex with these 2 guys in, I think, a bathroom at the high school or something. And ultimately, it may have been the girl that filed it, although we don't even know that the girl was the one that filed these rape charges. For all we know is like a teacher walked in on it, and the teacher is under some obligation to report what's going on, and that's where these charges came from. Who knows?
Yeah.
The point is that there were charges filed against these 2 illegal immigrants for raping this girl, and they were dropped because... And again, this is not, they haven't released a whole lot of information, but what they have said is that they released the charges because the evidence pointed towards it not actually being a rape. And the only evidence I've heard cited by, the DA or whoever it is that was, supposed to be deciding whether or not to press these charges was that she had text messaged some explicit, like nude photos or something, or sexually explicit photos with these guys. So interestingly enough, now the guys are actually being charged with child pornography instead of rape because they had pictures of an underage girl on their phone.
How old were these guys?
One of them was 18, and I believe the other was 17.
Okay.
The girl may have been 17 or close to it. Something around that age. I mean, it wasn't like she was like 10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that's a bullshit charge, though, by the way.
Oh, the child. Well, yeah. I mean, it sounds kind of stupid. That's neither here nor there. What I want.
I mean, it's really those are really fucking stupid, and they're really fucking up a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about like teenager to teenager, yeah. No,
18 and 17, that's teenager. You don't magically. Yeah. It's not magically wrong because it's they're fucking 18 and the one's 17. Like, that's bullshit.
Well, I agree, but I don't want to get too hung up on that. That's somewhat incidental. What I find most interesting about this case is if you look at every single other rape case or discussion of rape that any of us have heard in any sphere of our culture or society, it is that we live in a rape culture. Rape is the most horrible thing ever. Rape victims have to always be believed. And even after, the Rolling Stone UVA thing and the Duke Lacrosse rape case and all these other ones, Mattress Girl, that have been proven false.
Yeah.
And these were allegations that were perpetrated by the supposed victim.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know all the details in this Rockville case. And it does sound like the Rockville case may, if it was the girl that alleged it, it sounds like it very well may have been an illegitimate charge. It sounds like they very well may have not raped this girl. It sounds like it could have been consensual.
Okay.
So
we don't have enough information.
So would you say that you're like a rape skeptic?
Well, I mean,
a rape tick?
A feminist would definitely describe me as that, because I do not subscribe to the victim should always be believed no matter what, even if there's absolutely no evidence and there's evidence to the contrary. You should believe her anyway and ruin the life of the perpetrator. I'm one of those people that believes that if you falsely accuse somebody of rape and are proven,
you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
Well, of course you are, but everybody for the last 5 years especially has been losing their shit over, and this is the de facto policy on college campuses where they're not bound by actual legal standards.
Would you call it like a rape outrage?
The de facto policy,
rape rage.
The de facto policy of these college campuses is that they will immediately kick the perpetrator out of school. They will believe the girl, and they will proceed guilty until proven innocent. That is the de facto standard of how it's handled in colleges, because that's an administrative thing, not a legal thing.
Yeah.
Now, it's still a really bad precedent to set, and it's all sorts of bogus.
Yeah.
What I want to get to is the hypocrisy and double standards involved. If this were any other circumstance, and we've seen this exact same circumstance over and over and over and over again, nonstop for the past many years, where even after, again, the UVA thing was proven demonstrably false. And I think the police actually did file charges against a girl for false police, filing a false police report, which is the very least. I mean, she could be charged and convicted and sent away for as long as the rape charges would have been. I absolutely am in that camp. The false rape accusers should get every single day that their supposed rapist would have gotten. That aside, the way this case was handled was actually seems somewhat reasonable from my perspective. It's like, well, there were these charges, but we looked into it. The facts are not supporting the allegation. And so, we have a legal standard of innocent until proven guilty. You can't prove guilt without evidence. We don't have evidence. We are not going to proceed with the charges.
Yeah, 100%.
Why is this the first time I've heard this argument made in the last 5 years? After the UVA thing was proven false, Rolling Stone had a whole fucking article written about how, well, just because in this case it turned out to not be true, we should still always believe the victim no matter what, because it is far, and they actually say this in their article, like, this is what they say.
Yeah.
It is far more damaging to not believe an actual victim than it is for a man to lose his job, be shunned by his friends, and basically have his life completely fucking destroyed. Even after you're vindicated, people remember that you were charged with rape, not that you were later vindicated.
Yeah, exactly.
Just having the allegation levied against you will completely fucking destroy your life. You will be kicked out of your home. You will lose every single last friend you ever had. Nobody that's ever heard your name or seen your face will ever talk to you again. You will never be hired by anybody. You're going to be fired from your job immediately, of course, and just completely fucking destroy your life before even fucking charges are filed, much less you go through a court case and are found guilty. And the leftists and the feminists are so vociferously just drill into everybody's head that you are fucking evil if you even question a rape story. And in particular, they always bring the allegation of, oh, well, you're blaming the victim because, she winked at the guy beforehand, or she went on a date with him before the alleged rape, or she was wearing very provocative clothing before the alleged rape. That's complete bullshit to bring up any of that. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is that she alleged that she was raped. That's the only thing that matters. All these other facts are completely irrelevant. I don't care that she dressed like a slut. I don't care that she was flirting with the guy. I don't care care of this or that. The fact is that she was raped. That's the end of the story. We need to fucking charge these guys and put them through the ringer. That's been their entire mantra for, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, they've taken it to insane levels. Now, all of a sudden, it's not a white frat boy. It's not a white lacrosse player. It's not a white Harvard student. It's 2 illegal immigrants. Now, all of a sudden, please don't interrupt me. Now, all of a sudden, they become reasonable. Like, oh, well, we need to look at all the facts, and now we need to be very reasonable and follow a very strict Western legal standard of innocent before proven guilty, blah, blah, blah. Until now, all of a sudden, they're giving all this extra consideration and care about facts and everything because the alleged perpetrators were 2 illegal immigrants. That's the only difference between this story and every single other fucking story
wait, are there
that
not,
I've heard from the last 5 to 10 years.
But hold on.
Which story?
But hold on.
I'm talking about the Rockville story. They've had one perspective in every single case, from UVA to Harvard.
Yeah, but you're just talking.
Hold on,
but you're just talking about those specific cases that were publicized by the media. How many cases that we don't know about was it? Just done exactly by the book, where it's like, where's the evidence? There's no evidence. You're off the hook. Yeah,
of course. But the point is that this is something that's out in the public sphere. And
is this like a well-known case?
I'm pretty sure Sean Spicer talked about it in a White House press briefing last week.
Okay. I thought we were just talking about it because we were in Maryland.
No. This is like national. This is being talked about, or has been talked about on a national level.
So you're saying out of all the cases that are brought to the attention on a national level, this seems to be the only one where A, illegal immigrants were involved, and B, like they actually had justice carried out appropriately.
Yeah, basically. That's what it comes down to, is that in every single other rape case I've heard about over the last 10 years, the feminists and the leftists completely lose their shit whenever anybody says maybe we should follow our legal standards and, prove guilt before we destroy this guy's life.
Yeah.
That makes you a rape apologist. Of course, you've heard that term before. Yeah, they've made up that term. They've invented for anybody that questions that, like, maybe we should look at some evidence. Like, is there any evidence that this happened? Like, there seems to be some evidence that might point towards it being a bogus allegation. There doesn't seem to be any evidence pointing towards it actually happening. Maybe we should look into the facts and go through the actual judicial process, through the actual justice system, which was designed to figure these things out and sort them out. Mm-hmm. That made you a fucking terrible, evil, misogynist, patriarchal, rape apologist son of a bitch.
I mean,
but now all of a sudden, when the 2 perpetrators are these illegal immigrants, they become reasonable. Like, oh, well, we have to carry out justice. This is how our justice system works. That's not what you fucking said when it was all these white people, when it was regular American people, when it was a lacrosse player, when it was a frat brother. What were you going to say, dude?
No, I'm going to say, though, like, what was there a case when somebody who was innocent was convicted guilty that you know of?
Like, personally?
Yeah. Did you personally know of a case where somebody who was innocent was convicted as guilty because of because of the rape culture?
I mean, no, that happens all the time, and there have been people. I think one of you guys mentioned earlier that you were talking about a case where some guy finally got out after 6 years of being in jail, where he was finally vindicated and proven innocent. Yeah. So, yeah, of course that happens all the time. I mean, innocent people do go to jail.
I mean, is it a result of the leftists, or is it a result of just sloppy detective work?
My point here.
Well, do detectives and like prosecutors really care about like Tumblr? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I get what you're saying. No, I totally agree that like the left is super hypocritical.
That's my point. I'm not talking about actual justice, because in this instance, it does sound like justice is being carried out appropriately.
Yeah, but you're just saying the reaction of the left.
I'm saying the reaction of the left.
Ignore. That's because they have their hierarchy of victims, where it's like
exactly.
Yeah, it's like, which you would think like the rape victim would be at the top of that hierarchy, but no, it's brown people.
Yeah, apparently illegal immigrants are at the top of the stack. Right, I believe is their term they use.
Is that what they use?
Yeah, they call it the stack.
Really? So this is a legitimate thing.
Used. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you'll see. I mean, like a BLM rally, they'll say white people need to move to the back, and you can't talk because you're not oppressed like us,
right?
And so you shouldn't have as much of a voice as we do. I mean, it's all lunatic stuff. But yes, that is very much my point, is the double standard where they are completely fucking hysterical and want to throw the last fucking 500 to 1,000 years of legal innovation that the West has developed they would think that should be completely fucking thrown out the window every time a girl wants to say, "Oh, he raped me." But not this time. Why not this time? Oh, because apparently illegal immigrants are more important to them than rape victims.
Right. Yeah, it's perverted.
That is completely fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
And not because, not purely because like, oh, they've got... Yeah, I've said enough, but I think I've made my point that like, it's like, how are you going to lose your shit over every time it's a college campus rape epidemic? We're not doing enough about this.
One in four women will be raped.
Yeah, this is why we have to have a standard of. Basically, they advocate there has to be a standard of guilty before proven innocent in cases of rape. That is their position.
Yeah, but like
all of a sudden in this case they completely reverse it.
Yeah, but like how many rapes go unreported?
I have no idea.
How would you know?
Nobody knows.
Unreported.
Like, anybody that claims that they know how many rapes go unreported are completely full of shit. I mean, I'm sure that they can make statistical guesses based on this survey and that survey and that study, but I mean, at the end of the day, the point is that they're unreported, so they don't know. And so
and there's some slut shaming.
And the only people that bring that stuff up are people with a very clear agenda.
Yeah, there is some slut shaming too.
Well, and that's what every time in the past, and again, this is why I mentioned that the only evidence that has been cited, that has been reported in the media, and again, because there's minors involved, they're not reporting everything, it doesn't seem.
Yeah.
But the only thing I've heard cited in the media, and this is again like the DA making a press briefing about like why he's not going to press charges, because again, this is a national story. Like the fucking prosecutors had to like make fucking press briefings about this. People know about this. The only evidence that I've heard, maybe he said other things, I didn't listen to the whole thing top to bottom, or start to finish, was that she sent sexually explicit images to him beforehand. Now, again, if you were to bring that up and cite that as evidence that she wasn't actually raped, the leftists and feminists would lose their shit and be like, oh my God, you slut-shaming misogynist, how could you fucking say that? Just because she sent up some nude pictures doesn't mean she wanted to be raped.
Right. Which is fair.
But suddenly now, that's the only evidence that's cited in terms of why they're not going to press charges. And
I'm sure there's other evidence.
That's like the ultimate slut shaming to the feminists,
right?
And they don't have any problem with that.
Unless you're hot and you send nude pictures, then they don't like you.
Well, yeah, no, there's yeah, exactly. I mean, it's nothing but double standards and hypocrisy. But I mean, that really was just very mind blowing to me. I mean, even for me, that really was like pretty jaw dropping.
Yeah,
because I mean, again, this is one thing that particularly the feminists and other leftists have been so unbelievably, insanely hysterical about for so long. And now, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, so now we know how much they really care about rape victims.
I actually got, like, soft accused. So, like, we had a party. Like, we had a party at my house when I was living on campus. There was, like, on-campus housing. And we had a party, and, like, we were all underage, so we weren't allowed to have alcohol. But, of course, we did. And it got busted. And, we had, there was obviously a bunch of girls there, a bunch of guys, and we had, why are you smiling at me like that? And we had Jell-O shots, right? We had, whatever, it's a party.
Of course.
People have Jell-O shots.
Yeah.
So we get busted, and they, like, confiscate a whole bunch of stuff. And, like, we had a sign on the fridge that said, Jell-O shots $5 or $1 or whatever it was. So I go in to a meeting with the, I think it was the dean. Or the assistant dean, who was like, what's so funny? And it's a woman, right?
No, I just find your college delinquency humorous.
All right, well let me finish the story.
This is like the most typical college story I've ever heard.
Right.
So
basic college scenario. So I get in there and like she's like interviewing me to find out what happened or whatever, and she like shows me the paper, and she's like, first she's like, so do you have a liquor license? I was like, no. She's like, well, you're not legally allowed to sell alcohol. And I was like,
no shit.
I was like, okay. She's like, I could call the cops on you and have you arrested for selling liquor without a license. And I'm just like, what? Are you fucking ridiculous right now? Are you fucking shitting?
The cops already showed up and didn't charge me. So.
And then she's like, so why are you even selling Jell-O shots? Is it because girls like them and you can get them drunk and rape them? Like that's literally what she said. Yes, I kid you not, dude. And I was just like,
holy shit,
yeah,
dude, you were like thrust in the rape chair,
dude. I was like, dude, oh man, I didn't know what to say. Like, what do you say to that? Except for like no, like
That's fucking incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not even. It was like Jello shots $5 or free for women. Like, of course, that would be. You still couldn't say, "Oh, we're clearly trying to rape women." That would clearly be ridiculous.
Right.
But at least, like, maybe you could, in a very contorted, convoluted way, come up with like, "Oh, you're deliberately trying to get the women drunk.
Right.
Why do
sure.
you want the women to be so much more drunk than the guys?"
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I mean, that's a poor line of argument, but at least I can see that. But how the fuck do you get from I'm selling liquor for money because I want to rape women? Like, if you were trying to rape them, wouldn't you be giving it away for free? Like, that's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, like what if the sign said free for the ladies?
Yeah, I mean, that's wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know.
Wow.
And at the time I was just like, well, that was weird. And like I wasn't, involved in like libertarianism or anything like that, or like
I'm assuming this must have been like 15
plus
plus years ago too. Like this wasn't like just a couple years ago when this hysteria has
I'm not that old, dude.
Oh, well, I don't know how old you are. I'm sorry.
I'm 29.
Okay.
So it was like
I thought you were like closer to our age.
No, it was like 10 years. I guess it was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Maybe.
So maybe that was sort of the beginning of the.
Yeah. So maybe like
hysteria.
what my point that I was going to get to was maybe that was like the budding of this whole like, campus is just filled with rape culture. Meanwhile, like I don't know any girls, at least that I knew personally, that were raped while I was at college.
Yeah. No.
I'm not saying it didn't happen. I don't know. And I mean, nothing. I never saw any stories come out.
Yeah. People that have done actual studies on this stuff
so
come
you
up
just
with
look
figures.
the other way.
What's that?
So you just look the other way
of a rape?
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
because I didn't literally see them.
Yeah,
I just walk around like this in the frat house, just with my fucking.
Yeah, no.
Just like, whoa, frat bro.
People have done some actual legitimate studies of this stuff. Of incidences of rape and sexual assault on campuses, and have found that they're pretty much universally the safest place for women. There is no campus that was ever found to not be significantly safer than the surrounding area.
Of course,
like if you're a woman that lives
especially
in
if it's in the middle of the city, it's like,
well, yeah.
Well, do you want to live? You want to be in like Section 8, or do you want to be in like the college campus?
Well, yeah. For example,
that's a little unfair, but
for example, but I mean, even the college campuses are usually in relatively good parts of town, or whatever. But the point being, if you're a woman living, in College Park, you're much better off being a college student living on campus. You're way safer than just being random Jane Schmo woman living, on the other side of town.
Right. Because you're generally around people who are, seeking an education and want to better themselves.
You're around frat boys and lacrosse players, and they're all rapists.
They're all rapists. Yeah.
People have actually looked. I mean, if you believe the 1 in 4 statistics, like that literally would be worse than like the Congo. Like they're saying that, no, literally, like people look at the numbers, they're like, wait, so in the Congo where there's ongoing like genocide and rape is used as a weapon of war, you're saying college campuses are worse. Like,
right.
That's the most beyond retarded thing I've ever heard.
But it's one of the statistics that gets thrown out, and people are just like, oh wow, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
They don't do that. They don't do the math and think like, wait.
Yeah.
So you're saying like I'm sitting in like a row of like, 10 people at this movie theater, or like 20 people at this movie theater, and like half of them went to college. So that means like half of those, or a quarter of those people got raped. So there's like 3 rape victims here. It's like,
well, and they just they come up with insane ways to come up with these numbers. The same way they come up with like, 96% of scientists believe in climate change, or whatever. If you actually look at the studies where that number comes from, they're completely insane bullshit studies where they're counting things as being in support of climate change. They're not even remotely.
It was 97%.
And a lot of people that were cited in that study as being one of the 96% that supported
97.
Okay, whatever.
Well,
it is.
bro,
a lot of those scientists
Get
who had their
right.
a lot of those scientists who had put out papers that were then as used as part of this meta-analysis, saying they're like, this study supports anthropogenic climate change. The people that actually wrote the studies, a lot of them came out after the fact and said, no, it fucking doesn't. I'm not supporting that. My paper has nothing to do with that. It does not support that. You are completely bogus in including my paper as being in support of climate change.
Yeah,
but
it was totally.
It was only one study, like one analysis, that came up with this 97% or whatever of scientists believe in climate change, and everybody keeps citing it, even though it's been proven as complete bullshit. It's the exact same thing as the 1 in 4 will be raped on a college campus. It's completely bullshit.
Or like the
study.
the gender wage gap thing.
Yeah, I mean that's another one. I mean, there is. That's slightly different in that there is a wage gap, but it's not because of, but it's for perfectly legitimate reasons, not because of.
But it's also I
mean, they're including women that work part time selling beaded jewelry.
But it's also
Etsy.
not. It's not what they say. They say it's like, what do they say? 70 cents to a man's dollar.
77 cents to the dollar.
That's
something.
bullshit. It's not that, and it's
well,
also
they're saying,
like you said.
Can you believe this part-time worker at Walmart is making less than the CEO that works 60 hours a week?
Yeah, right.
That's so unfair. Like, you can't fucking compare those two.
And it's not like you have this. Like, if you took the same position and said women working it, man working it. There's no evidence there that there's, at least broadly speaking, that there's any variation in pay.
Correct. And I actually have seen some studies that show, particularly on the younger end, if you look at like women between 20 and 30 or something, for example, I don't remember the exact studies, but I've seen several studies that show that there are fields and different demographics, age ranges and stuff that you can look at where women do make more than men.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about like unmarried people in their 20s, young professionals, women actually make more than men. And it's not until later in life
like maybe
that the numbers sort of flip around and the men start making more than women. And there's all sorts of reasons. Like, for example, the study doesn't take into account that, you decided to have babies and took 10 years off from your career, and then went back to part time after that.
Right.
And they're comparing that dollar for dollar with somebody that worked full time their entire life.
Making babies is misogyny.
Well,
Don't you know that?
But I mean, like, that's like so completely bogus. Like it's retarded to even try to compare those two things. But of course, they keep citing it because they assume that most people are too stupid to actually look into it and have any sort of rational thought or skepticism. And unfortunately, they're right.
People buy it.
People buy that shit and they never bother looking into it. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth even gets its pants on.
Oh, I like that.
I think it's a Churchill quote.
Really?
I could be wrong, but I think that's Churchill.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I think we can just end it on that note.
Cool. So,
the t-shirts?
Yeah. We're not wearing any tonight, but if you head over to libertariancountry.com and if you check out t-shirts over there, you find anything that you like. If you can use the coupon code PRL or PRL podcast, PRL podcast, and you'll get a 10% discount?
10%.
Yep, 10%.
Oh, and apparently, are those patches?
Oh, yeah.
Are those available yet, or no?
Punk Rock Libertarians patches are coming apparently, so
they might not be available. Maybe when this hits the wire, it'll be available.
Maybe, but they are coming soon, so you can pick those up over there. And also, we're always accepting article submissions on the Daily Liberator. And until next time, live free
or die.
Statism's footprint is the blood that is shed, drenching the flags on the tax bombs in red. Poisoned by a few at the expense of the many, sold to the gods and the death machine. You can't justify killing by economic gain. For God, country, and democracy, you can put freedom in gunpoint in a foreign land. You support the troops, then bring them home. I believe the Joe will do the best for you. And I believe that we have the power, I hate the state, and I know I'm a slave. We can make the break the power. Society owes individuals nothing more than non-interference with natural rights. Once a virtuous person fully comprehends the non-aggression principle, the violence in the state becomes obsolete.